Welcome back to Here in KC, where my goal is to get to know Kansas City in no other better way than through its people. And today's guest is Diana Condori, also known as Tiki D, and I would like to introduce her as the new upcoming Tiki Queen. So welcome, Diana Condori.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm so excited. I have so many questions to ask you. Hopefully we can get through all of them, but really starting off, let's just kind of rip the Band-Aid. Can you go ahead and just tell us a little bit your story, like what brought you to be this businesswoman that you are today?
Thank you. Well, thank you for saying that.
Yes.
I would say it started when I was 16. I was starting the restaurant industry at a very fast food restaurant, like Five Guys. That's where I started. And then I kept going, and my first real restaurant experience was a little local restaurant in Waldo, and I started as a host. And so, you know, I went from wiping menus, sitting people, to eventually moving my way up to serving, and then from being a server, being a bartender. That was basically how it all got started, and I didn't stop when I started bartending. I really was passionate in creating cocktails at a very young age after being behind the bar before. On the other side, as a server, I was always curious, you know, as to what a classic cocktail is. And there's so much history in every cocktail that you drink, and from even the riffs. So that was very interesting to me. And it's also fun and creative and social. So I just kept going. And then eventually I landed at a tiki bar called Tiki Cat.
Yes.
And that's where the passion of tiki, you know, became the thing for me, I guess.
Okay.
I started as a bartender at Tiki Cat 5 months after it opened. So I was like, it was very new to Kansas City. And it was my first time working at a tiki bar. I worked at regular bars where they have, you know, regular drinks, like classic cocktails, beer, wine, but I've never worked at a tiki bar before. And that was my first time, experiencing that world, because it's not just tiki, it's a culture.
Yes.
And a lot of people don't know how big it is until you're actually in it. And so I think my first encounter with the culture of tiki was when I went to Tiki Oasis in Arizona.
So that's a bar?
It was actually a festival, basically, of tiki enthusiasts.
What?
Yeah.
So there's a festival all around tiki. Okay.
Yes, there's a huge festival called Tiki Oasis.
Okay.
I wouldn't say if it's like a festival. It's more like I guess a bunch of people just gather around, talk tiki, from like ambassadors of rum, reps, to artists, musicians. Kind of like a festival, but like in a hotel in a more educated way. There's room parties where you have like tiki drinks, bars from all around the United States that are tiki bars. They go and throw parties. They use the rum from all these brands, and it's basically a community of tiki.
Right, like to build those connections.
Yeah, connections, yeah. So that was my first time seeing how huge this tiki culture is. When I went to Arizona, I was representing Tiki Cat at the time when it was still open. And that was when I fell in love with it. I was like, this is a whole world, it's a community, it's like a family. And I never felt so much support and just community and collaboration before in the industry that I worked in. And I think that's how I fell in love with tiki. Not only that, there's a lot of culture behind everything that you do also, from the rums that are made in the Caribbean islands to Mexico and Puerto Rico and all those places. And then, there's also a rich history of how tiki got started, and the exotic drinks that were made in the 1930s to now. Us bartenders, the new generation of tiki bartenders, now we're making our own riffs of those exotic classic cocktails from the 1940s, 1950s.
Wow.
So Tiki is a lot of people are recalling it. It's reviving, or
Okay.
a revive of Tiki is happening, and that's awesome to me. So basically, after the pandemic happened, Tiki Cat sadly closed, and we were the only Tiki bar in Kansas City at the time.
Because it was kind of like a speakeasy.
Right.
It was in Top Cat, correct? Okay.
So Hopcat is owned.
Or Hopcat,
Yeah,
yes.
Hopcat, the original Hopcat is in Michigan, and they have other Hopcats around the United States. So basically, Tiki Cat was a little side project that they had. They had the room in Kansas City to build it, and it was underneath Hopcat in the basement. And you had to go down the stairs. It was very special. There was no bar like it in Kansas City. You go into this beer bar, you enter it, and you're like, where is this Tiki bar?
Right.
And then it's like you go down the stairs towards the bathrooms, and then there's like 3 hallways. One hallway goes to the kitchen, another hallway goes to the bathroom, and another hallway turns into bamboo. And then you try to find the door, and then there's this little light, a green and a red light. And if the red light was on, then that means only reservations, no walk-ins. If it
Okay.
was green, it means that you can ring the doorbell, but you had to find the doorbell,
Okay.
or else we wouldn't let you in.
That's so interesting
Yeah.
you mentioned that, because when I moved here to Kansas City, I mean, I had been to Top Cat, correct? I keep saying Hopcat. Top Cat.
No, Hopcat.
Top Cat. Oh
Yeah,
my gosh,
like
there we go.
Hopcat. I was like,
Hopcat.
you're fine.
I'd been to it times before, and then it wasn't until, I don't even know, in passing, somebody said, oh, you've been to Hopcat? Yeah, so you've been to Tiki Cat. I'm like, no.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, it's a speakeasy. I'm like, I love speakeasies.
Yeah.
Like, I had no idea.
Yeah.
And they're like, I've been to the restaurant before. They're like, yeah, you just go downstairs and you do that. I'm like, you really, if you don't know, you don't look, it's hard.
Right.
It's not hard to find, but it's not that it's obvious.
Yeah.
So you have to know what you're looking for.
Right.
And that concept was amazing to me.
Yeah. And there was actually really funny stories. A lot of people would try to find the bathrooms too. And it would be like, is this the bathroom? Well, because sometimes like people that will come in, they'll let like a little crack against the door shutting all the way
Okay.
through. So some people will like sneak in sometimes when the door didn't fully shut. And they'll like walk in and be like, these aren't the bathrooms.
This is nothing like
And
that.
we're like, no. And it's like this huge bar, you know, just random people everywhere. They're like, what is this?
Yeah.
And then they all want to come in. But the space was very small, so it was mostly reservations only.
It was, yeah, I mean, it was very intimate, and the whole atmosphere. I mean, from people here from Kansas City, if you've ever been to Tiki Cat, it's different. The aesthetics, I mean, you really are escaping
It's-
the world into a new world.
Exactly. It was like a portal to
Yes, it was like a
to
portal.
somebody's basement in the 1940s.
You're like, what is this place?
Yeah, and like Tiki Cat was really special because it was curated really, really well. From music that was playing to the lights to the artwork, the cocktails were curated, and they were taught by Martin Kate, who owns a bar, a very famous bar called Smuggler's Cove.
Okay.
And he was a big time basically, and then the designer Bamboo Band. He's well known in the Tiki community. He's designed one of the best Tiki bars in the world. And then we have artists like Gecko and many, many more designing our mugs, like Anthony Carpenter. So there's a huge list of how it got curated so well. And I think that's why Tiki Cat won Best Tiki Bar in the world in 2018. Right. And that was one of the biggest highlights, I think, and also in the Kansas City community in the restaurant industry, because we have one of the best tiki bars in the world in the Midwest and Kansas City.
In the middle of literally, no.
Yeah, and that was like what really highlighted the love of tiki and the passion of tiki back, I think, in Kansas City. So when we lost Tiki Cat in March, basically, that was my last shift of last year because of the coronavirus. It was really sad for a lot of the tiki community people. A lot of people our age now, started learning about tiki and wanted to keep going to Tiki Cat and learning more from us.
Right.
It became a huge movement again back in Kansas City. And not only Kansas City, I think the Midwest. So when it closed, I took the opportunity to bring it back. But it all started in, basically, I did a pop-up The first pop-up was at Mean Meal. It was one of the bars I used to work at. I did a pop-up there with...
So let's back up a little bit,
Yeah.
because pop-ups they've been more popular even before the pandemic. Can you explain a little bit about like what is the concept of a pop-up? Like what's the goal for it?
So basically, I think pop-ups are basically startups, in my opinion. For me, it is. That's how it is for me. You know, basically you're building a brand, or you're doing a little maybe experiment as a company to create a new client, or you know, bring more people in a different way.
Yeah.
So basically, pop-ups are pretty fun right now too. They're everywhere. Like people can do like clothing brand pop-ups. Coffee pop-ups are really big right now.
Okay.
And then for me, it was like bringing a tiki aesthetic pop-up, and that's how it got started. I really didn't think much of pop-ups until I did one, and I'm like, am I considered a pop-up? Because there's guest bartenders, right? Like I've done that before.
Right.
I go into bars and I create like maybe one cocktail, and I'm just bartending for one night, but I'm not bringing any aesthetics or any decorations. I'm just bringing myself and a cocktail.
I mean, you're bringing.
But now with this,
a concept.
I'm bringing a whole concept. I'm bringing trees. Light bulbs.
Bamboos. What else are you bringing?
I'm bringing my mugs. I'm bringing books. I'm like designing this whole space. You know, it takes a lot of time and effort. And you know, a lot of my savings are going to me buying all these decorations. And you know, it's been kind of like every time I do a pop-up, I save what I made. I put it aside and buy more decorations. So every time I feel like I do a pop-up, it's getting better and better and better.
Well, it also seems like it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger, right? With all the decorations on there. And you mentioned something, you started doing the pop-ups, but also, I mean, we were talking about earlier that the pop-ups concept was also you were helping the community in the restaurants. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So the first pop-up that I did was basically a farewell to us, the Tiki Cat bartenders. I personally wasn't going to do this. That wasn't the intention at first, because I became a full-time bartender somewhere else basically at that point. But I felt like we all needed a goodbye, a goodbye for sure. And so I gathered our old crew back who used to work at Tiki Cat, the last of us. So it was Jen, Jordan, and the hostesses, Novian, Christy, and Kiara.
You got your whole crew
back.
The
whole crew. I was like, hey, how would you guys feel about having one night together again? And they were stoked. They were like, that's awesome, because we never got to say goodbye to each other. We never got to say goodbye to the place. And a lot of the people and our regulars wanted to see us one more time. So I asked the owners at Mean Meal if that would be really cool, and and they were like, yeah, that's fine. So we had one last goodbye pop-up, basically Tiki Cat takeover at Mean Meal, and then that was the beginning of that. A lot of the regulars asked us, when's the next one? This can't be the last one. And then I was like, I don't know.
You're like, I just did this for once.
I did this for once to like help us too, because all of them were unemployed still. I was lucky enough at the time to have a job immediately after the pandemic. A lot of them were still unemployed. So I was like, this is a good opportunity for all of us to make extra income again. And I saw that as an opportunity later to maybe this actually can help a lot of places out, not just us one time. And so I took the opportunity to do that, and the next pop-up that I did, I remember just going to Westport Cafe because I just love that place. They're amazing. It's
one of
food,
my favorite
amazing
ones
staff.
too.
I love it, love it, love it. And I remember them talking to me about it a little bit. They were like, would you be interested in doing that here? And I was like, really? They were like, yeah, we would love to have you. So basically, that was like the beginning, or I guess, to this era.
Continuing, so you went from this to where it's like, oh, okay, people are asking for it.
Yeah,
Let's go here.
And obviously I couldn't bring the other crew back, sadly, because they have their own staff of their own that they need to, employ also in staff. So just having me come in, and curate this space was something that I could do on my own, and then bartend. But I knew that the following of Tiki Cat that we had was huge.
Yeah.
So I didn't know if they were gonna follow. I was like, it's a chance. It's a 50-50 chance. So I don't know. The Westport Cafe, when I first advertised it, it sold out in like 3 days. It got booked.
Wow.
And I was like, wow, there's a crave. People love Tiki.
Yes,
they
people
miss
want
Tiki.
this.
they miss the hideaway, the tropical, escapism that Tiki brings. And that was my first pop-up. And I basically saw this as a long-term thing.
Okay.
I saw how much of this pop-up helped also Westport Cafe, in a sense, recuperate some profits that they lost during the pandemic. Not by like, a lot, but it's
bringing
still
people
a lot.
in, it's something new, and you're bringing people to where, for the community, for the restaurants, they're like, hey, this is Westport Cafe, but now we just kind of have a little event, but hey, Westport Cafe is here. So you're helping really the community, and also, your coworkers.
Yes,
so,
coworkers who, and the staff too, like, that was a Sunday when we did that.
Okay.
And it's usually not that busy. To be booked like a Friday night on a Sunday, that's always good business for any restaurant or any bar. So when we did that, I saw the momentum that this actually could help establishments. And I'm not asking for much. I'm just asking for, this helps me also promote myself.
Right.
A little side gig, and I love it because it's Tiki, and everybody loves Tiki. Everybody's happy and enjoys themselves, And then after Westport Cafe, I did Dodson's, and then that also got booked. And and this momentum kept going, and I finally realized, like, maybe I can just do this and start my own pop-up Tiki concept for now. But hopefully the goal is to eventually have our own space. So that was where the launch of Condors Cove started.
Came about.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's like the big move.
Right. So you went from taking this opportunity, you're like, hey, this opportunity is here. I'm helping people. I'm helping the community, your community, your friends. And then now you are making these events and they're selling out, and you're like, whoa, hello.
Yeah.
This is something that it's your world now.
Yeah.
So Condors Cove, correct?
Yeah, Condors Cove.
Yes. Tell us a little bit about what brought you to the name. Like, what's the story behind the name?
Yeah. So Condors Cove is basically inspired by my family's last name. Okay. In a sense, I'm Bolivian, and so our national animal is the condor. So a lot of that also was an inspiration from my country of its own. Also Condori, which is my last name, it goes way back to the Incas, to our ancestors.
That's so beautiful.
And so I've always been really proud of being Bolivian, and I've always find it really hard to, put my culture in what I do as a living. And if I'm gonna make it or, have a business, I will always want to represent myself and my country in some way.
Yeah,
and
you
my
want to
heritage.
bring that culture with you.
And I feel like, it's not Condori, but it's Condors.
Yes.
And Condors, that was inspired by my family's last name, my country, and my heritage. So that was the big reason why I named it Condors. And then Cove being like a tropical hideaway.
Little hideaway.
Yeah, I think it fits perfect. Condors Cove, the logo was done by a good friend of mine named Austin Chapman and his wife Nobian.
You were just helping everybody out here.
They helped me too. So
That's
it's
awesome.
a community, it's a collaboration.
Yeah.
They get promotions too, because he's an artist and he got promoted on that. And then Nobian helps me with the bar setups, everything. They're amazing. So that's my little team. That's my team for Condors Cove for now. We don't know where that's going to take us. But we're basically a startup, and we've been doing really well so far. We're booked for at least 3 months.
What?
So we're in different restaurants. Yeah, so we're going to be in different restaurants in Kansas City, bars. I don't announce them until I put it on social media.
Okay.
And I'll
the anticipation.
Then, because it makes it fun. Like,
it does.
And I kind of have a little slogan like follow to see where the condor lands next. Like in different coves of Kansas City. So this past month, January, I launched Condors Cove at the beginning, and then I launched the brand at the Press Penny Tavern, and for 3 weeks. and it was amazing. A lot of people are supporting me, and it's just amazing. A lot of the community in the restaurant community, bartenders to owners of restaurants have reached out to me to collaborate with me, and that to me is just, it just shows like what Kansas City is about, you know, and that's all I want, a community and a collaboration, because, you know, at the end of the day, we're all in this together.
No, we are. And
Yeah.
you know, what I've learned through meeting people here in Kansas City, it's a community and supporting each other. You know, it may not be big, but within this people, it is a big city. A lot of people do have those connections in the industry, food industry, or anyway on there. So that is, I'm so excited to just get to see where this is going. Condors Cove. So your drinks, I know we talked about a little bit like, yes, we bartend, but I want to call you a mixologist because there is a science behind the drinks that you make.
Yeah. So basically when you create cocktails, I think a lot of the cocktails that bartenders create, they're, you know, mostly inspired by classic cocktails. That's the core, and then we make riffs in our own way.
Okay.
So a lot of my cocktails, you know, are inspired by the Mai Tai or zombies, or even classic non-tiki cocktails.
Okay.
So to me, I think that's how that's the fun part. It's like you're a little chef, but with liquor and syrups, and it's really fun to create. I love it a lot, and it's, you know, it's always fun to see to have like a guest be like a gimlet and be like, hey, do you want to taste this and tell me if it's good? That's always the fun part, and most you know, customers love trying new cocktails, and a lot of my regulars, they'll be honest, they'll be like, that needs a little bit of sugar.
Right.
A lot of them, I'm like, okay.
Okay, well, let's just try it again.
Yeah, I love it. So that's basically, I think, how, you know, bartending is in a sense, but yeah.
Okay, so we talked a little bit about, touch on your Bolivian, and you're very close to your culture. I mean, you brought it to your business, your name, and that you grew up in Kansas City, correct?
No, well, kinda. I mean, I've been here the majority of my life now, but I was born in Jersey, but when I was 9 months, or I don't know, almost a year old, I went to Bolivia, and I lived there with my family, my aunt and my cousins, till I was 11 years old. Because at the time my mom was an immigrant and she wasn't able to afford to take care of me, so the best way was to send me back to live with my aunt and cousins. So I was there till 11 years old, and I came here, and so English was basically my second language, because I didn't know any English when I first came, because I was a baby and when I left, and so it's definitely, you know, it definitely was a challenge for me to, I think that was like probably the first challenge I've ever had in my life. Also meeting my mom and, you know, being around her, and my stepdad for the first time at all times.
So you moved back when you were how old?
11.
11. Okay, so at 11 you're learning English, right? And do you recall having, because that's an age to where you gotta remember a little bit like culture shock.
Absolutely culture shock.
Adapting to American culture.
Yes. I mean, I would say I was very shocked that there was air conditioning everywhere. I was like, wow, they have air conditioning everywhere, and there's bathrooms everywhere. You can use the bathrooms. Because, like, you know, in South America where I lived, you have to pay to use the bathroom.
Okay.
In most places.
Yeah.
It's not just open to the public like it is here. So there was a very, like, those little things I noticed for the first time. Also how iced tea is like with ice.
With actual ice? You're making me think back.
The first time I had iced tea when I was here, like, it was at McDonald's, because we only drink hot tea in Bolivia. And then there was iced tea, and I was like, what is that?
What? It's like a
and
singer?
it's so good.
No, it's actually great.
But, you know, I only like knew 3 words when I first came here. It was like help, bathroom, and cake.
Which are all 3 very important.
And they told me, you know, like you need to know at least 3 words to get around. So yeah, those were my 3 words. It was pretty funny, but eventually I learned English fluently. At the time but by the time I was like 15 or 16, I was able to be in normal classes. I passed the ESL program. Yeah. Because I was in ESL
And ESL is like English as a second
Yes.
language. Yeah.
And by the time I hit high school, I was able to be in normal classes.
Okay.
But you had to like reach a proficiency level and pass those tests. And the minute I passed those tests, I was so happy. I wanted to be normal and be, well, not normal, but be in a normal classroom setting.
I mean, it's different, right?
Yeah.
Coming in and learning. I mean, you're at such an age to where you're kind of finding yourself, and then you came in middle school, you're growing up, you're learning English, and then boom, you're 16, and then now you are welcomed into the bartending life.
Yeah.
And look at you now.
Yeah.
I mean,
27 now, and it's going well.
and it's going very well. I mean,
so far so good.
are very successful.
Thank you.
So
That means a
far
lot.
with an opportunity that you've taken, and you took that opportunity and you're like, yes, you know what? I'm going to help people along the way. I'm going to help the community, include my culture in there. That is very important to you. And I mean, I am just excited to where this takes you.
Thank you. That
And
means a lot.
Tiki D, I'm telling you, you are the future Tiki Queen. There's no joke about that, no understatement. Well, I want to thank you so much for being here. I've enjoyed just learning about you, your concept, and I'm so excited to see where you're going, because I'm just really excited about this concept. I love tikis.
Yeah.
I love the environment. So is there a social media platform that the viewers can follow you to for all these future events?
Yeah, if you want to follow Condors Cove .kc on Instagram, that's where you can follow us to see where the Condor lands next. We have a lot of restaurants and bars that we're going to be partnering up with in the next couple of months, and we'll see where that takes us. And hopefully, we'll have our own space eventually. But for now, this is a really good way to also collaborate with the community, and just, I get to meet and work with so many wonderful people. And it's awesome. I'm like, this is amazing. I should write a documentary about this.
Well, I mean, we can. Well, thank you so much again for being here. If you want, follow Tiki D and see where the Condor lands and where the future events are.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Kansas City, for tuning in. I hope to see you next time. Thank you for tuning in to TELEVIDA, produced by Exo Films, and I will see you next week.